Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the August 2018 meeting of the Board of Trustees. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Ms. Barrientos to call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Del Brazil,
Present.
Michael Feller, Victor Garza, James Mulkey. Here. John Messingale.
Here.
Mr. Bryant, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And moving on to agenda item 2, the prayer and the pledge. Mr. Toscano, please.
Yes, sir. We have representatives from Oak Crest Elementary School here today, including their principal, Miss Joette Barnes.
Good evening, School Board President, Mr. Bryant, and Superintendent, Mr. Toscano, and all the school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. We have a special presentation from some of our Oak Crest students along with other community members. So we hope that you enjoy. I think some of them just ran to the restroom real quick and they'll be back.
Nervous.
That's awesome. Gracie and Macy. You're supposed to be on summer break.
School Board President Bryant, members of the board, Superintendent Toscano, and staff and honored guests, welcome to the first ECISD School Board meeting of the 2018-2019 school year. Will you please take a position of prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, as we embark on the new school year, allow us to experience your presence and the many blessings you provide. Give guidance to this school board to make positive decisions that affect our students. Give patience to our staff to help our children learn. Give faith to our parents that their children will be safe and nurtured in their absence. And give the children an open mind and soul that may absorb and apply the knowledge they learn. We ask this in your name, amen.
Amen.
At this time, will you please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, recited by Carson Page, Meg Bassbinder, and Mason Lee.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now leading us in the Texas Pledge are students Gracie Kowalczyk, Lexi Lewis, and Bridget Batiste.
Pledge allegiance to I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. In the spirit of the new year, our students have prepared to us the night before school, a home for the teachers. 'Twas the night before school starts, and all through
So if we have any family members of any of these students, please stand up to be recognized. And if we have any faculty and staff members from Oak Crest, please stand and be recognized. Come on. And so we do have a token of appreciation, so if some of the students can please take one of the cute gifts that we have. They're little beehives, cookies, they're cute.
Cookie.
Thank you.
Do you want to hand them to, you want to take her up to give them to one of them? And then follow behind. Gonna give one to each person up there. If you older kids want to grab one, and I'll just hand them to you, and I'll just go back.
Thank you, sir. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Victor, you're jealous. He's taking on a Santa. Oh, we got one. All right.
All right, thank you very much. We're gonna dismiss the kids and parents, so y'all can start your meeting in just a couple minutes. Thank you.
She took charge, there you go. You didn't say.
Didn't take much, did it?
Makes your job easier.
Looks like someone that's been to a board meeting before.
Hey, Steve, just in case you were gonna make them stay, she made that clear. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there went the first recess, so we're just gonna keep on going here. All right.
That's awesome.
Why are y'all leaving the front row?
Right?
All right, well, it's always good to have the kiddos start us off with the meeting, and that was a wonderful performance. So I'm not sure Santa Claus would be happy, but they'll just have to live with it. All right,
Thank you.
we have no awards and recognitions this evening. We'll move on to public comments. Do we have anyone who signed up for public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good save. Good save.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So agenda item 5 is public hearing for high school equivalency program.
Trustees, on page 10 in your electronic packet, there's a brief summary of findings. What the HSEP, or High School Equivalency Program, is for students who qualify under certain conditions of being at risk of not receiving a diploma. It is a program that we chose to implement at BCLC this past year. And if you'll recall, at BCLC, the turnover of students is pretty frequent. I believe students' average stay is about 9 months. And so they don't often earn credits towards graduation in a timely manner, and they don't often earn credentials. And so we always kind of are innovative about the programming that we attempt to implement there. This particular program would give kids the option, if they so chose, in that 9-month stay, that they would just focus on preparing for a GED. And we had about 19 kids participate, I believe. We didn't have a lot of success, as we usually do not in that short time period, having kids pass the entire GED exam. We're gonna strategize a little bit differently. It was all online. It was a student in a computer. So we're gonna blend that a little bit this year. And we're also gonna chunk sections of the test and give kids an opportunity to focus on areas of the test, hopefully pass portions of the test, and then work their way up to hopefully building the confidence and the skill to pass the entire exam. So that's what the report shares with you.
Does anyone, since we are having a hearing, does anyone wish to speak about the high school equivalency program? All right. And we'll move on to item 6, public hearing to discuss proposed budget and tax rate.
Mr. President, I don't have any comments on that at this time. We will be presenting the proposed budget as well as proposed tax rate to the board during the action agenda.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak to the budget? All right. Then we'll go on to agenda item 7, the superintendent's reports. First is personnel report.
Trustees, in your electronic packet this month, you'll see the personnel report beginning on page 12, running through 16. And this is the close of the busy season. For the most part, all of our positions have been filled, and all staff are prepared and will be prepared to receive and serve students on the 27th. And be happy to answer any questions or provide additional information if you need it for any of those listed in the report for this month.
All right. If anybody has any questions about that, please get with Mr. Toscano offline. Item B, update 111.
Trustees, this update is enormous. I believe it's approaching 600 pages. So I want to point to a few reference points for you. This is the first reading of this update. We'll bring it back to you next month for your consideration and approval. As a result of the 85th session, these are all recommended adjustments still from that session. On page 1, actually page 21 in your packet, you'll see an overview of what you're going to see in there. There are policies for board member continuing education, reports of fraud, financial impropriety, emergency access to district facilities by contractors and subcontractors, employee compensation during emergency closings, reasonable suspicion of alcohol and drug testing of employees, and excused absences for students who are pursuing armed services enlistment. Those are the big topics addressed in the update. As always, you can choose to view the vantage points, and I would encourage that with the update this large. It is on page 457 in your packet. That's 457. And that's an executive summary that you're familiar with that is specifically for trustees.
Yeah, so I'd like to also call everybody's attention to a couple of board requirements in there for education and announcements and those kind of things. They're up near the front of it, and there's some links that'll take you off to some additional information. So might want to make sure you take a gander at those and read through those as well. All right. Do you have any questions or any concerns about those over the month? We'll get them back before we adopt this next month. Item C, construction update.
All right, trustees, Mr. Selby's prepared the update for the month, and there are a lot of updates. Obviously, with school about to begin, a lot of certificates of occupancy all across the district, and a lot of final preparations in anticipation of students and staff getting ready to go on the 27th.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yes, it's it's the monthly time for the board update on 2016 bond. As we progress through this, Tradition Elementary School, it's the most recent photograph, took that today. Thought that turned out fairly good. And the landscaping is complete for the most part. The building is complete. We actually received certificate of occupancy on Tuesday. So we are in there. They are still doing some work, but we have it substantially complete. This is the gym, just kind of some of the same views you've seen before, but on the right, what you'll notice is that that's the cafeteria. And I took that photograph, now it doesn't work all day. My little pointer didn't quit working on it. But on the right, you have the cafeteria, and that's all the furniture that's being moved in. There was a staging point for that. A lot of the furniture is already in the classrooms, but this is today at around noon. So we're still moving in. We're still got a lot of work to do, but we're getting in there. That should be completed by the end of the week. So we have a lot going on. The library on the left is the library with the grand stairs going up to the second level. On the right is the second level that shows on the second photograph, the left side is the rail that overlooks the library. You have on the right a classroom that you'll go into for a multi-use classroom, and then a beautiful view from the window itself. This is the pre-K through first grade classrooms. On the left, you have your life skills classroom, part of it, and on the right, a typical classroom in the pre-kinder area. I thought those turned out very nice. Second through fifth grade, once again, you have the typical classroom on the left, and on the right, you have a photograph of the collaborative area that's in the hallway, where you can have small groups working on various projects out there while other parts of the class are actually in the classroom. And so that turned out very nice, much better than the photograph did. Landscaping, I think, is beautiful there. The landscape photograph on the left is for the second through fifth grade playground area and general use area. It's actually taken from a classroom on the second story in the classroom building itself. So if I was a student, I'd have a hard time paying attention if I got to see that. But on the right, you have the pre-kinder through first grade playground area. Tradition, as I said, we are substantially complete. Certificate of occupancy on the 14th. We began moving in prior to that date, moving all the teachers' crates that had their supplies and items from their classrooms at John Glenn over into Tradition. Teachers will be able to get in there on the 18th. We were trying to get in earlier, but just with all the activity going on there, it was going to be difficult to do that. But they'll have from the weekend all the way through the rest of next week to set up, depending on their schedule with professional development. Performing Arts Center. This is a photograph taken today. The exterior has continued to they've made some improvements there, some progress. Site work is well underway in the area. They're getting ready and forming up for concrete floor on the stairs, as you can see towards the right side of that photograph. They are cleaning up the area to the main entryway and putting in new curbing, and that the main entryway will be reopened by the time school starts so that parents can use that area. Choir classroom is on the left. Just give you an idea of the built-in risers for the choir room. Still lacking some windows back in there, and so you still have some work in progress there as well. You can tell the ceiling has not been, ceiling tiles haven't been installed, so they're still doing some above monument stairway is on the right, going up into the mezzanine area, second story. As you can see, there's a lift there, so they still have a lot of work going on there as well.
I had a quick question on the fire classroom, those boards that are up, is that just from glass that hasn't been installed, or is it from glass that was broken?
Glass that hasn't been installed.
Okay, just making sure.
This is a view of the auditorium from the stage. That shows that the seating has been installed. It has protective covering over it. The walls, most of the walls are completed inside there. And all of the flooring has been stained and done on the main area. But we do have seating there now. The band hall renovations are complete except for punch list items. You can see that we already have, we've moved in there for a while, but we weren't able to get in except through a fire watch. So we don't have to pay somebody from the Bear County Fire Department to stand there all day long while our kids were in there until they got final fire clearance. The photograph on the right is a sample of the Winger practice rooms that we had installed. And talking to the band folks today when I was in there taking photographs, they're really excited about what they have. The kids can be in there performing while the other kids are out in the main band hall assembly area that you see on the left. And both groups can be doing things without interfering with one another. So it's very nice. Want to show something positive here. The band renovations, the punch, TCO, were based on passing the fire on August 14th, fire inspection. Performing Arts Center is, we may be able to punch by the week of September 28th. And we will move in as basically the following day after we get certificate of occupancy. My best estimate right now is October 1st. We are not obviously very pleased with the progress that the Guido construction has not made on that. To me, is an understatement. We have had some quite sincere discussions in the last month on an ongoing basis on trying to make sure that that continues to move forward. And we have sent them both orally and through email notice that any additional cost to the district as a result of this will be deducted from the contract through liquidated damages, and that we will follow that up with a formal letter from legalese language as well. So not very very good news for that. But moving to something that is more positive, Salado, this is the new signage on that you can see from 410. Quite striking. That's on the new gym. If you drive by and look at Salado from 410, it does not look like the same school it did. It's quite, in my opinion, extremely impressive. By the time all of these four additions, renovation projects at the four campuses, you're going to have a completely new look at the majority of these campuses, and in the interior will be completely new. It's going to be extremely proud of what's happening there. This is a phase one. This is the on the left you have the common or the collaborative area in one of the hallways, and on the right you have one of the fine arts renovation classrooms. This area used to be actually the band hall and has been gutted. They redid the interior on the right with storefront windows and going out into a new courtyard, which I'll show you a photograph of in just a moment. It's going to be extremely adaptable for multiple purposes, I think. On the left, you have a renovated classroom in Wing C. You can see we're moving everything back in there. It's not in order yet, but it gives you an idea of where we're at as far as the phase of getting it all back in place. By this time next week, I can assure you it will be set up, and I'm sure those teachers will be getting ready for school. That was in Wing C. That building was built in 1992. too, if I recall, and was in dire need of some improvements. And if you go in there, it looks like a brand new building. Very nice. On the right is an area that's, if you're familiar with Salado, which I think most of us are, as you come out of Wing B over by Wing C, when you used to walk towards the band hall and the gym, that was all just had 2 or 3 sidewalks with railings on it and just Bermuda grass growing in the middle if it wasn't too dry. And so one of the perpetual problems at Salado was drainage. It's so flat there that water would just literally sit quite often. So to make improvements with that, we did, you can't see it as clearly as I would like. You can see a little bit of it on the bottom left, a little canal, concrete canal that goes under the sidewalk. That will flow out towards the corner of D-Wing and the new Fine Arts building and new additions, and then move on into a storm drain out into away from the campus. There's also a little, what looks like a little creek running through all of that area with the concrete sitting areas or the stone sitting areas, and there will be 2 little bridges there. And so when it does rain, there should be very good drainage going out of there. In fact, whenever it has drained, even before it was done, it was draining much better. We got temporary certificate of occupancy on the 16th for phase 1. We will have that on the 17th for phase 2. We already had, and the reason they're temporary is because it's a technical thing because the city, the way they issue the building permits, each phase is has a kind of a mother, that's what it said. You have a primary permit, and then you have all the other little phases are permits that feed off of that. And so each time they will give us a TCO for each phase, and at the end, when we finish the final phase, they'll give us an actual C of O. But even with those temporary certificates of occupancy allows for full occupancy by the people that can move. We already began moving in there before we got TCO. We were able to do that through city approval and continue to make those moves and get set up. At Harmony Elementary, once again, the front has not changed a whole lot, but with the new phase in the back, quite a beautiful building. You've already seen that. That was completed back in June. Classrooms that you have in the renovated areas. The area on the left is a collaborative area that's in what was the kinder classroom towards the back of the school. It was a standalone building that was built in 2001. And then on the right is the renovated classrooms. What's interesting here is that you have a whiteboard that actually slides over in front of that glass in the event you need to secure the area where people can't look in there. But when you don't need that, you can open it up and have more visibility. Certificate of occupancy on phase 1, which was the addition, was back in June, as we know. The move-in started in June for phase 1. We also had temporary certificate of occupancy for phase 2 on August 10th, and we've been moving in since then. Quite a bit of work over a short period of time. Con Valley, probably one of the most impressive. All of them were great challenges to get the amount of work that they did over the summer, but this was huge. They not only did they have the addition that they completed around the end of June, roughly, beginning of July, actually, but they redid all the paving in the front. They put up the awning. That's one of the things I should have pointed out. If you drive up Con Valley, it does not look like the Con Valley used to look. It's a completely new look with the awnings, with the new addition, with the new siding that went up on the exterior. It's I think quite impressive. I took a photograph of the demolition of the same area, and this demolition picture doesn't even give justice to the amount of destruction that took place in the interior. Basically, all that the metal framing was eventually pulled all out. They had to do, because of the plumbing that had to be done, they had to do all this dramatic trenching throughout most of the school. And so it looked literally like a World War I battlefield after they got all the trenches done. And they were to get that out, do the concrete, do the plumbing, do all the concrete to cover that back up, put up the new metal studs, put up the walls, put up and polish the concrete. It was a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time, and they did a very good job. So as I said, we have a certificate of occupancy, which I didn't put the date, but we do have that now. We started moving into phase 1 in July. We have a temporary certificate of occupancy on August 10th, very similar to what we had at Salado with the mother-child permits that we have through the city, and we've been moving in since the 15th. And so that continues to move forward. Sinclair, we have a new covered walkway in the front that gives the front of the school a new look as well. By the time the school is completed, other areas of the front of the school will look different as well. You have the new addition that we already got at the end of May. You have the new library. In the library, a lot of the work done in there, you can see the new lighting system that are going to be in all of the libraries in those schools.
Cafeteria.
Excuse me, cafeteria. Did I say library? Cafeteria. And what you don't see is all new ductwork for the air conditioning, new lighting, new ceiling went in there as well. So a lot of work above that ceiling. On the right, you have a hallway that goes from what is on the just to your left and behind you on this photograph is the library. And you go down the hallway that used to go out to the playground area, now goes into phase 1 addition. And those are some of the new classrooms that are part of that renovation. There's also a huge amount of work done there as well. So we completed phase 1 in May. We began moving in June. Phase 2 had more than one part to it. The gymnasium was completed by July the 31st. They were able to have registration there because they were able to get that moved up and completed in time. The cafeteria and the classrooms, we got temporary certificate of occupancy on August the 9th, and we've been moving in since. John Glenn Annex, we continue to move forward with design. Construction documents are at about 40%. We'll have those completed by the beginning, first part of September, so we can go out to proposals and have that go to the board for consideration in October. The plan is to start construction or renovations there in November and be completed by June. That's all out of fund balance. And then ECDC we haven't really started on. I want to just mention that the work that's taken place, in particular at those 4 campuses that are under the JARS contract, huge amount of work in a short period of time, and that contractor, in my opinion, has done an outstanding job. But at the same time, it's been a complete team effort. The principals and their staff have been and will continue to be challenged on a day-to-day basis with all the construction that will be taking place. What they now are moving into is actually having temporary construction walls made out of plywood, separating where we will still be using the building from where they are doing the renovations in phase 3 and then in phase 4 throughout the school year. Phase 5 is the final phase, which will be completed in the this coming summer of 2019. But I want to just now thank them for all the patience they've had, and to please ask them for continued patience, because it's going to be quite challenging for the next year. But we're fortunate to have a great group of folks that work for us, but also a good contractor that's really performed very well, I think. They form bonds with the principals at those campuses. They communicate well. They follow through. When they make a mistake, they don't make excuses. They just try to correct it and get it going forward. And so I've been very impressed with JARS.
With who?
JARS.
Joyce.
Not so much with Guido?
No, haven't.
So what was the original promise dates for Guido on the tradition and the,
Tradition was supposed to be June the 1st, somewhere June the 1st through the 4th, and obviously have not hit that date. They did have some issues, as we talked about a little bit, on concrete issues, but somewhat delayed partly on their part as well. They had some bad weather days, so they'll get some additional days, but they aren't going to get 3 months worth.
I just remember when they were here and they had some dates that they promised that we would be able, and I can't remember what those dates were.
I can tell you, they promised tradition by the end of July, basically, and they promised the pack by August 15th.
Then what is their reasoning for, excuse for not making those dates?
Just didn't get it done.
Just to get that-
Their excuse is, well, they blame the subs, they blame a variety of things, but that's why we hire them. That's what a general contractor does. They manage all that to make sure it gets done. So I'm not gonna make excuses for them.
No, we shouldn't have to. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Selby? Everything's looking good. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody's patience and everybody's work. All right. We have upcoming events.
In your miscellaneous calendar, a couple of dates to point out. Of course, you can see August and September is very full with open houses and athletic events, et cetera. But on the 27th, obviously, students come back. That's first day of school. And then quickly at the high school on the 29th, we'll have our annual Meet the Hornets event at the stadium at 7 p.m. Moving into September, next regularly scheduled meeting is on the 20th of September. We also are scheduled for TASB Convention in Austin, the annual conference, and it starts on the 28th and runs through the 30th. And back in September on the 3rd is the first school holiday, it'd be Labor Day holiday. I believe also in your packet, you got an athletic pass. You should have gotten that today, and I know that the athletic office will also, in the upcoming week, be providing your tickets and parking passes and those sorts of things as well.
All right, thank you for that. As usual, it's gonna get really, really busy. But it's all good. It's all good. All right, now moving on to our action agenda, item A, 2017-2018 amended budget and information.
Mr. President, trustees, at this time, our CFO, Ms. Judy Burns, will present the amended budget to the board from the 2017-2018 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano and Mr. Bryant and the board. I kind of feel like I'm doing the lip sync battle by myself. For y'all that were not yesterday at the welcome back, you know, that was very interesting. I'm just so thankful they didn't ask me to do any of that
Yet.
yet. I'm bringing you the amended budget for y'all to approve, and it's just an amended budget. The final numbers will be from the audit, and the auditor will be here the week of October 15th, and so he'll present the actual expenditures in November board meeting. So all I have for you here is what my best guess scenario that will happen. And I will tell you that this has been one of the hardest amended budgets I've ever had to do, because if there was a perfect storm, we had it. And by that I mean with the revenue. I've been here a long time, and I've never seen Bear Appraisal District refund millions of dollars that we had to take from the money we would have gotten back to their taxpayers. So if you look at your amended budget and you see, Judy, you budgeted $700,000 in local for delinquent taxes, basically we got none because they refunded the money back from litigation that they had for prior years. So that was kind of a storm to weather. And then the next storm was that the state sources, you know, which we get from our average daily attendance, we had a very poor average daily attendance due to circumstances. And we're hoping that won't happen again. But when you put those two together, that really decreases your revenue. And that's what you're going to see in this amended budget, that I had to reduce the revenue in order to have better numbers for the auditor. I didn't want y'all to have surprises when came time for the, the audit. So anyway, I had to reduce those. Basically expenditures, I didn't have to increase those, except that we did take to y'all 4 budget amendments for construction, and I was able to put one of them back because we didn't buy the land. So on paper, it looks like we're going to go into the fund balance by over $14 million. And I say that by paper because, again, our budget stewards, our principals, our department directors have done a great job of being careful with their budget, buying what they need, and to maintain their schools and departments, but not going over and above board. So I'm hoping by the time it's all done that we won't be going into the fund balance by 14 million. I think it'll be maybe 10 million, and I'll be very pleased with that. But on the first page of the amended budget, and I don't think y'all want me to go through every page by page, but if y'all would like to, I'll be happy to. But the amended budget is considered of the general fund, the special revenue fund, the child nutrition, debt service, and construction. And as I said, on paper, we're going to be $14 million over budget in general fund. Special revenue is child nutrition, and we're going to be over budget by $818,000. But that's a good thing. And the reason why it's a good thing is they cannot keep an excess fund balance for child nutrition. They get written up. So we're trying to lower their fund balance, and that will help because they'll have an audit this year from the USDA, and so that's good that they have that using their fund balance. Then we have debt service, which again is because of the refunds of the taxes. But one thing we did get is the state went back in debt service and paid us some more for IFA that we had earned from previous years. So that kind of helped us not go into fund balance too much on debt service. And then construction, it looks like we're $51 million in the hole, but it's just that you can only do revenue one time, and we already have done that for when we sold the bonds at the 2 different times. So that is what we're going to ask you to approve is the amended budget on page 497, and it's approved by local, state, and federal and other resources, and then by all the functions. And the pages after that just kind of tell you information, percentiles that are spent by different functions. And then on page 499, it just kind of tells you where the proposed budget that we took to you last August and where we're at now. And you'll see we're down in a little of them, but that's because it was from previous budget amendments that we took to you to clean up some things, especially for Function 11, because we had to move that money into Function 13. But the one thing that we did take from fund balance was the facility improvements, Function 81. So do y'all have any questions, or would y'all like me to go over all these pages? I'll be glad to.
Any questions for Ms. Burns?
So could you just clarify on the general fund where you talked about the $14 million shortfall? There's $12,177 in facility improvements there.
Basically, right now, it looks like we might not spend maybe $3 million of our expenditures. So that's the reason why But even on paper, I have to show what it is, but
Right.
not what is actual.
That's,
So-
that's with, that's a construction line item, basically.
Yes, basically, the big one is function 81, which is facility improvements. The reason why it's kind of over budget is because our revenues went down.
Right. But that's consistent with what the board's goal was in this bond program. I
Yeah.
just wanted the board to be
Yeah.
clear on that.
We decided purposefully to pay for some of the construction out of fund budget. So, yeah, we're good. I guess I'm more concerned about the comments that you made about Bear Appraisal District refunding some money.
And also, we had an enormous amount of, what we call adjustments, where they adjust whatever the appraised value is, and we had an enormous amount last year. And, we tried to call Bear Appraisal, but sometimes we don't get return phone calls. We're gonna continue because we wanna see what they plan for us for next year. We don't want surprises. And so, yeah, we're gonna stay more in tune and in contact with Bear Appraisal and the collection agency also.
So if you don't have any luck with that, please let me know so that I can get a hold of the Bear Appraisal Board of Directors, some of whom we elect and some of whom we may not want to support in the future if we can't get answers.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, please. All right, thank you. All right, no questions? All right, Mr. Toscano.
Mr. President, I recommend board approval of the 2017-2018 amended budget and information as presented.
All right, we have a recommendation from Mr. Toscano to approve the amended budget as presented. Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Mulkey. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Brazil. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item B, discussion and adoption of the 2018-2019 proposed budget.
It's on page 507, and again, it's split up by general fund, special revenue, debt service, and construction. And, it's a balanced budget for our general fund. It's not a balanced budget for special revenue, child nutrition, but again, they need to spend their excess fund balance. Debt service is gonna be a balanced budget, and construction, it's not a balanced
Anybody have any questions? I think we're good.
Mr. President, I recommend board approval of the 2018-2019 school district budget as presented.
All right. I have a recommendation from the superintendent to accept the budget as presented. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Barrientos. Is there a second? We have a second by Ms. Brazil. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and adoption of the 2018 tax rate.
Ms. Judy?
Now, this one I'm very happy to present to y'all, because the fact is that we're going to be able to give our taxpayers a reduction in their taxes. It's not a lot, but it's a sign of good faith, from the district to our taxpayers. We're going down a penny in interest and sinking. We're gonna go to $1.325 tax rate. We're going down a penny. And we're able to do that because a couple of things. We're getting better interest rate on our investments. We are, getting, a lower interest payment this year on our bonds and, principal and interest. So, and then our P&I has always been good. So, we need to pass that on to our taxpayers. So, my suggestion and Mr. Toscano's leadership is that we go down, by a penny to $1.55 tax rate.
Anyone have any questions about that?
I will tell you that we are the second to lowest in the tax rate and still for the Bear County schools. There were 6 school districts in Bear County that lowered their tax rate. There were about 5 that increased their tax rate, and there was 1 or 2 of them that just left it the same. So we're really in a good position. And I kind of did a little scenario for y'all. If you lived in, if you had a $200,000 home in Southside, and you had a $200,000 home here in Central, you're gonna pay $501.80 more at Southside than you will at East Central. If you lived in Judson, you would pay $104.48, Meredith.
Aye, aye, aye.
We're not gonna call anybody out, but. All right. So I just think it's important, critically important, that on the INS side, if we know that we don't need the money and we have the flexibility to give it back, then that's the thing that we ought to be doing. We've done that in the past, and it's worked for us very well. So, does anybody have any questions of Ms. Burns? Meredith? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, Mr. Toscano, please, sir.
I just want to add, trustees, if you'll recall, prior to the 2016 bond, we were at 127.5. We projected to taxpayers that the bond program would cost 16 to 17 cents on the INS side. And as of today, with your approval, it'll be a grand total of 5 cents. So, Mr. President, trustees, I recommend board approval of a tax rate levy for 2018 of $1.32.5 per $100 of assessed value as per the attached order. Said rate to be comprised of $1.04 for maintenance and operations and 28.5 for debt service. This year's proposed tax rate does not exceed the effective tax rate.
Thank you. We have a recommendation from the superintendent to accept the tax rate for 2018 as presented. Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Mulkey. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Barrientos. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, 2018-2019 employee salary schedule.
Miss Judy, I believe this is your last lip sync battle.
I know. I don't know if I'm winning or not, but it's fine. And, Mr. Toscano, if you wanna chime in,
Sure.
feel free to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
The salary schedule for 18-19
custodians pay that?
Everybody except the administrators.
Except administrators,
And right now, it looks like, it will be right under $500,000, once we take the criteria about the date and, times that they have to be there. So if they have a breaking service, they won't pay.
okay. Let me ask you another question. How do we compare with other districts on this master stipend?
On the stipends?
Yeah, you got $1,600 for a master's. How do we compare with other
Oh, I
districts?
think we compare very well. Looking at most of them, you see a $1,500. Sometimes you see a little less, sometimes you see a little bit higher. But I think the majority of them are about 1,500, so I think we're pretty good with $1,600.
Okay, that's what I got. And a doctor's degree, you're gonna get $3,200.
Yes, sir. And I think we have 2 or 3 people that get that.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Burns? Okay, I think we're ready, Mr. Toscano.
Trustees, I recommend board approval of the 2018-2019 employee salary schedule as presented.
I have a recommendation for Mr. Toscano to accept the 2018-2019 employee salary schedule. Chair will entertain a motion. I have a motion by Ms. Brazil. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Mulkey. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are in the audience that deferred on this to your staff, I commend you. It seems like we see that more often than not here. I can remember a number of years ago when it didn't look like we were gonna be able to give salary increases to anybody but the teachers, counselors, that kind of group, and they came back as a herd, if I can use that term loosely, and said, no, y'all need to cut ours back and give everybody else something as well. So, again, thank you very much for that. It really shows where y'all's hearts are. So thank you. All right, item F, approval to amend TASB Medicaid billing contract.
Trustees, the SHARS, School Health and Related Services Contract, this is a Medicaid financing program, and it's a joint program of the Texas Education Agency and the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. SHARS allows local school districts to obtain Medicaid reimbursement for certain health-related services that students who are special education students receive. And so we've used TASB as our fiscal agent and our partner. We've used their software to electronically submit billing reimbursements. This past year, we did a 1-year contract with TASB this past year so that we could see if the relationship was gonna work well, and it did. We still feel like we're not ready to enter into a multi-year relationship yet, so we're proposing another 1-year contract with TASB for that partnership for SHAR's Medicaid billing, and that's what we're bringing for your consideration here with this item.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions?
Only just, would we just look at this as a year, go year by year until, or is there a benefit in doing something a little bit longer to be locked in down? And I say
Yeah.
that from a reference of who knows what's gonna be going on with Medicaid and those kind of reimbursements in the future. I was just wondering, so we would be looking at probably, obviously, for this 1 year, and then the next time would reconsider if we would do 1 year or maybe longer, or is that on both sides? Do they make that recommendation? I was just curious.
Yeah, so this is really a recommendation for a service provider that helps us to identify services that qualify for reimbursement, and then put the request together electronically, helps us ensure that we've got the appropriate documentation and that what we're asking for is appropriate for reimbursement, and then we submit it. Their benefit is they get 6% of whatever we do get reimbursed. And there are other groups that do this.
Okay.
TASB tends to be less expensive.
Oh, okay.
There are other organizations that are much more aggressive
Okay.
at the reimbursements that they go after. So we're a little more comfortable right now with TASB. It's a relatively new program for us. I believe we've been doing SHARs long time? Okay, so it's a long time. I guess we've just gotten a lot better at it in recent years. Is that a fair statement? Okay, that's a fair statement. I've only been dealing with it for about 4 years. So I'm relatively new to the program. How about that? Better? Thank you, Shannon. So eventually, if it works out with TASB, we would probably be considering a multi-year relationship.
Any other questions? All right.
Trustees, I recommend board approval of amending the term of the contract with TASB from the 3-year renewal to a 1-year renewal.
I have a recommendation from the superintendent to amend the TASB Medicaid building contract. Chair will entertain a motion. I have a motion by Ms. Barrientos to accept the superintendent's recommendation. We have a second by Ms. Brazil. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item E, ECISD General Office Renovations 2018 Change Order Directive Number 3.
Yes, sir, trustees. So if you'll recall, well, as you know, you've seen the construction going on here at Central Office for several months throughout the past year. The original scope of work here at Central Office involved roof replacement, roof re-sealing and coating here in the boardroom, some exterior improvements, some of the rotten wood around the buildings, some fascia, et cetera. It also included some site work to improve the drainage conditions out here. And some EFIS repairs. You're very aware that once we got into the subgrade of that structure, we noticed that there was some significant water rotting of the infrastructure. And so there began to be some additional scope that was necessary. So there were several change orders in this project that I did approve as your designee. So some additional scope that we did level the boardroom. We had to replace the gutters around the boardroom. We moved electric conduit on this building over here because we found out we had to replace the air conditioning unit. So we took it off of the roof, rerouted the electrical, and put the unit in an area that was a little more easy to do preventative maintenance. All of the other EFIS improvements, which we had to end up doing, the further we got into it, you saw that we moved further along the building, were all based on time and materials. So also some waterproofing was done, and we were going to replace some of the screens and figured out that they were all pretty bad and had to replace all of the screens around the building with solar screens. So we did scrub the invoices for time and materials, paid close attention to make sure that they were appropriate because, as you also recall, we had them redo the work on multiple occasions. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't paying for time or materials that were a result of them having to redo work that was not done to our standard and expectations. So all in all, the change orders that we did have to do, the additional scope of work did consume the contingency that was built into the project. The contract originally was $490,853. We have one pay app still pending board approval to be paid. So they've not been paid for actually the last change order, as well as some monies that we held back. And so the additional above and beyond what was built in for contingency, the difference is what we're bringing to you for your consideration today is $40,279.91, which would bring the total contract up from $490,853 to $531,132.91. We'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about any of that.
Any questions for Mr. Toscano? All right.
Mr. President, I recommend the Board of Trustees consideration and approval of the East Central Independent School District Central Office renovations 2018, change order directive number 3 for $40,279.91
Thank you. We have a recommendation from the superintendent to accept change order directive number 3. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Barrientos. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Brazil. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Does any board member wish to have an item pulled from the consent agenda? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Barrientos. Is there a second?
There you go.
We have a second by Mr. Mulkey. The consent agenda is approved via unanimous consent. Before we adjourn, Mr. Toscano, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir.
Anybody else? All right.
I know it must be so exciting to get to start school and in many ways see brand-new additions to the school. I recognize been some challenges from everybody dealing with this, but I'm very encouraged that the first day of school is gonna be so fun.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes, it is.
They're all just jumping up and down in their chairs.
Well, a few of them are exhausted from yesterday. They were doing a lot of jumping around.
Oh, well, yeah, that is.
But you're right, Ms. Brazil, the additions and renovations and the newly constructed facilities are they're really magnificent. And they'll endure one more year's worth of construction as the additional phases are complete. But in the end, as the board promised the community, they're gonna have some facilities that they're gonna be really proud of, that are gonna be more than adequate for many, many, many years to come.
Well, we appreciate all y'all's effort on that and the things that you have to do to work around to get to where we want to be. I know that can't be easy for you. It's very difficult to work in those circumstances. It's not anything we haven't done before, and you guys have just been really, really great troopers through all of that and making sure that folks are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I guess we'll get through the final move-ins and be ready to rock and roll. But if we can do anything for y'all, please let us know. I know that next Monday is going to be another one of those days. Anxiously awaiting that, and also with a little bit of trepidation to see what the wonderful students of the district might have in store for you. But we'll see how that goes. So, all right. With that, the Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Mr. Mulkey. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Brazil. We are adjourned via unanimous consent. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.